This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. On January 13th, 1903, a large group of Koreans made history when they landed in Hawaii to start a new chapter of their lives. Several waves of Korean immigrants have left their home country for America seeking the same. As of 2022, there were more than 1.8 million Korean Americans living in the U.S., according to Census Bureau data. St. Louis isn't among the nation's biggest hubs for Korean American community, but STL has long been home to first-generation Korean immigrants and their American-born, U.S.-raised children. And learning Korean language has been one way that people of Korean descent have maintained and, in some cases, established connection to their ancestral heritage. Here to talk about that with us, we have Julia Shim, president of the Korea Academy of St. Louis and a 35-year resident of STL. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here today.
We also have Hyung Kyu Choi. Hyung Kyu is a more recent transplant to the region and currently teaches second and third graders at the Korea Academy of St. Louis. Hyung Kyu, welcome to you as well.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yes, and happy Korean American Day. So, Julia, I'd like to hear about the start of the Korea Academy of St. Louis. When the idea for it arose, what was Korean language education like in this region?
As far as I remember, back in early 1980s and 1990s, Korean school was part of a program for churches. Mm-hmm. But back starting 1997, St. Louis began to integrate some of those schools together. And our Korea Academy of St. Louis started as an integrated school back in 1997.
Mm-hmm. So if we sort of think about the number of different schools, so to speak, that were running, what was the reason for bringing them all together?
I think early 1990s, most Korean people identify themselves as Korean, not so much as Korean Americans.
Okay.
So they get the resources from mostly churches and trying to maintain their languages and their identity through having Korean school. But before that generation, a lot of Korean people didn't really emphasize learning Korean as much as they just wanted to become more American than maintaining their Korean identity.
To assimilate more.
Exactly.
Yeah. What was it maybe that was missing, or maybe missing opportunity by having so many different programs instead of one that was consolidated?
During that time, I think they are more focusing reading, writing, and listening, not so much learning about culture and history of Korea. Mm-hmm. And understands that as a Korean American, what we can do in this St. Louis area or in America.
Yeah.
So I believe what's missing for your question, just sort of realize who we are as Korean American in United States.
Yeah.
We didn't really focus teaching them or thinking about that at that time.
The way that location can affect experience. I mentioned in the introduction, St. Louis is not a hub for Korean Americans. The largest population is in California, specifically in the Los Angeles area. Then you have other places like New York. There are places in Texas, right? And even Chicago here in the Midwest. What do you think it was about the St. Louis area versus other parts of the U.S. that sort of informed or shaped Korean Academy of St. Louis's approach to teaching Korean language and culture?
Just like you mentioned, St. Louis is not a bigger metropolitan, definitely plays a role when they approach the teaching language. And because of that, we can focus more diversified of focusing, because not so many people are speaking Koreans, and we only have approximately 10,000 people, Korean people by 2024. But because of that, and also a lot of communities now embracing different culture, we have opportunity to share our culture and history to community more and more. So now Korean school is focusing not only the language, even though it's a St. Louis smaller area, we have opportunity to share our culture to community more so than before.
Hyung, you've lived in other places.
Yep.
So born in Korea.
Yeah.
But you also lived in Thailand.
Yeah. When I was 4, our family moved to Bangkok because of my father's business. Yeah, and I was raised there. Yeah.
And were there Korean schools in Bangkok at the time?
Yes, actually there was. It was not a big school, but we did have a language school.
What was your experience like there?
It was. I just remember getting scolded a bit for trying to because I wasn't like super good at Korean back then. But it was definitely a fun experience because I got to hang out with my friends. We would hang out, talk about cartoons, comics, and then we would play basketball. That was the big thing I remember. But I think in somewhere between those playing with friends, the language and culture like kind of really seeped in.
Yeah. And I can say I was a Korean school dropout, and this was in Southern Ontario in Canada. So I did not grow up around very many other kids of Korean descent. And the social aspect was really the thing that turned me off more than having to learn language at a time outside what I was needing to do for school. And that kind of gets to another point that I wanted to talk about here. Julia, you were mentioning the role of churches. It's not just for spiritual enrichment or support, but it's also for very social and cultural reasons that people seek out churches when they leave Korea and go to a new country. Many Korean language programs remain associated with Protestant or Catholic churches primarily. And although Korean Academy of St. Louis, it takes place in a church in the Kirkwood area, the curriculum does not include religiously focused material. Have you found that not being affiliated with a church or religious sort of bent, that is an attraction for families who bring their kids to the program?
Yes, I think it does. When program is associated with a church, some families might be concerned about whether they may learn about the religions. So by not incorporating in any kind of sort of religion curriculum, it attracts more different background of families. And also, our school is focusing Korean American identity, and so I really try hard to maintaining that our school's reason why we are existing in St. Louis, not just because the faith-based school.
Right. When you speak with parents and families, Julia, what is it that they tell you about their reasons for enrolling their children in Korean language classes?
I think I can say that the main reason is different prior to COVID or after COVID. I can really see the difference.
Okay.
Before COVID, they normally just want to maintain teaching them the language. But after COVID, more and more parents, they are really aware of who we are as Korean American in this area.
Yeah.
So we are really focusing, teaching them our history as a Korean American And I think by teaching them culture and history, I hope it helped them to really find who they are as a young age.
Right. And you have older students, meaning like high school students and college kids who come to volunteer, right? For those who have come through the Korean Academy of St. Louis, what have they told you about how learning Korean language and culture has helped them sort of navigate socially and culturally being Korean American in St. Louis?
We do not have any students older than junior high school students, but I still, because I involved with the school for such a long time, I still interact with the student who graduate from our school. And when I talk to them, they still feels like they're outsider sometimes. And even my son, who's in third year in college, he's still searching who he is when he attended college. So just by simply learning language is not really help them to be a Korean or Korean American. But experience interacting with other communities and learning involved with the communities and learning about how Americans and other ethnic background live in this country is help them to shape who they are. So to me, language and culture and history and understanding, interacting with the family and community is big part of the really learn who they are.
Yeah. Hyung, you are a parent.
Yep.
You have 2 kids,
Yep.
and the older child is now 10.
Yeah.
What are your reasons, apart from your being one of the teachers and your wife also being a teacher at the school?
Yeah.
Why is it that you want your daughter and your son, who's now 4 or 5?
5.
Why do you want them in this Korean school context?
So I've thought long and hard about this. So at first I was just going to encourage them to learn the language just so we can communicate better, But I thought of this. You know how once in a lifetime, everyone just kind of really thinks about who they are, their identity, like where am I from? And I thought that if I had plenty of resources that I could offer to my kids, that would really help them identify themselves more easily and better. And also just having more resources, just having a bigger pool from where I can get these resources, it really encourages them, and it helps them be more proud of their heritage. So that's another big reason. I wanted them to be proud of where they're from, where they were from, and our heritage. So,
Yeah. Well, and among these children, your younger child was born
Yes.
in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So he is a St. Louisan, native
Yep,
St.
yep.
Louisan. And you have another on the way.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So as they are navigating like social and cultural spaces, what is it that you want them to have that maybe students or people like Julia's son, who's a third-year college student, who's also born and raised here in St. Louis, might not have had?
That's a really good question. So I feel like just having someone watching your back, in a sense, just having that community behind you that could support you, that you could kind of rely on, and they understand what you're going through. They share your cultures. They share your interests. I think that's really important, and that's something I want to have my kids have. So yeah.
How is it that you teach? So, full disclosure, my son is one of your students. How do you work with them, especially given that among the students you're working with, there are some who are living in homes where there is no Korean at all spoken?
So that is actually a challenge in a sense, but at the same time, it's also an opportunity because it's pretty new to them and it's very novel to them. And I found that many of the culture and their interests that the kids have, it's also from abroad as well. From like for example, Pokemon is a huge, it's something they really like, and it's from Japan. And I tried to look for things that they could relate from Korea, and we found this TV show called Haunted House, and it's from Korea.
Yeah.
And just finding those kind of connections, it really helped them kind of get more proud, be more proud of their heritage, and also it also helps them to get incentivized to learn more about Korean. So there's a practical element there as well.
Yeah. Julia, there are not only kids who are learning, there are also this year, there are adults who are learning as well. And when we talk about what Korean American encompasses, we're talking about people who are Korean adoptees. We're talking about adults who are of biracial backgrounds. How is it that what you are doing with language, how does that support them in sort of feeling like they are part of a larger whole?
I think our school can offer some of the things that American school is not really teaching, such as Korean American history and cultures, things like that. So those adoptees or others who are interested in Korean culture, they come to our school to learn, and they also wanted to get some information before they go trip to Korea. So our school is mainly focusing answering their questions and prepare them to kind of learn about the costumes when they visit Korea. Of course, they're not going to master the language attending 1 year or a couple of semesters. But because Korea is become popular in the world.
Right.
And more, even Americans, they wanted to learn. And our school is involved with having program for adoptees for many, many years with the Dylan adoptees program. So those parents just wanted to learn about Korean cultures and the Korean cuisine and traditions such as Seollal or Chuseok and all those sort of things. And that's what we are providing for them.
Right. And speaking of Seollal, this year's Missouri History Museum, the Lunar New Year edition of Thursday Nights at the Museum, is focused on Seollal, which is Korean New Year. Last year was Tet, which is Vietnamese Lunar New Year. Is there anything about an event like that that presents a valuable opportunity for Korean Americans and for those who are curious about Korean culture, sort of beyond, K-pop and K-dramas and that sort of thing, to experience?
As a matter of fact, before we come to this program, Hyung Kyu and I had a conversation, and I believe for this kind of program is good for the community to share our culture and how we celebrate Seollal. But as Korean and Korean Americans, meaning of Seollal is not so much having New Year's party. So do you want to kind of elaborate it?
I feel like Seollal is very more family oriented in a sense compared to a more open, more public kind of event. So in that regard, I feel like it would really help raising awareness and just kind of introducing our culture. But at the same time, as a Korean, I feel like, okay, isn't that more a family-oriented thing? Each family has their own traditions. Kind of, of course, we have the dumpling soup and we have the rice cake soup. But at the same time, we have some families play different games. They have different, allowance money traditions. So, so I feel like it's somewhere in the middle. I appreciate that there's a public kind of showcase of this, but at the same time, it's a very family-oriented, private kind of culture as well.
And I think that does get at how Korean American can be many different things,
Yes.
and that it does not have to be one thing or another. Julia Shim is a longtime St. Louisan and president of the Korea Academy of St. Louis, and Hyung Kyu Choi is a more recent transplant by way of Kansas City and a current teacher at the Korea Academy of St. Louis. Hyung Kyu and Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
This episode was produced by Elaine Shaw.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.